Guess who's back? Back again. Guess who's back? It's Phyrexian Dreadnought, and he's got friends. Hey folks, Phil Gallagher of ThrabenU here for another donation deck list. This direct to YouTube special brought to you by Joseph M, who wanted to see Legacy Hushbringer. So this is a 1/2 flying lifelinker that says creatures entering the battlefield or dying don't cause abilities to trigger. Now, last week we tried Stifle with Phyrexian Dreadnought to build a 12/12. And we often found that the Dreadnought kind of sat in our hand because we didn't have enough ways to get it into play. Now, what if we have Stifle and Scroll of Fate and Hushbringer and Hushbringer's sister? We're going to go with sister to Coddle Honor Guard, which does the same thing. And now we have 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 ways of cheating our 1/1 or our 1 mana 12/12 trampler into play and letting it go and do its thing. Now, there's 2 more, but we're going to talk about that in a second. So the other thing that these Hushbringers and Tocatl Honor Guards, as well as the Stifles, I guess technically, are going to do is allow us to get an Uro into play faster. So Uro has an ETB ability that causes it to sacrifice itself if it's not escaped. Well, we can shut that off with Hushbringer, Tocatl Honor Guard, or Stifle. And that's all really cool. But what if your Phyrexian Dreadnought or Uro ends up in the graveyard? Enter Lazav the Multifarious. When it enters the battlefield, you surveil one. You look at the top card of your library, and you can put it into your graveyard. And for X, it can become a copy of a creature card in your graveyard with converted mana cost X. Except it keeps its name and it's still legendary. So if you, say, play a turn 1 Phyrexian Dreadnought, let it sacrifice itself, you have Lazav on turn 2, then on turn 3 you can pay 1 mana, and all of a sudden Lazav is a 12/12 Trampley Boy, which sounds pretty cool, and turning a Lazav into something like an Uro isn't all that bad either. A quick note on the initial deck list. The initial deck list I was given had Aether Vials and 23 lands. And I thought this was a pretty bad Aether Vial deck because as it was built before, I believe it only had 20 creatures, which is a little bit low if we just like grab a random Death and Taxes list here. This has 25 creatures. And while a difference of 5 doesn't sound like a lot for an Aether Vial deck, it is. It's like such a huge difference. And I thought this was going to be a really bad Aether Vial deck. So I took out the Aether Vials and I added in a playset of Ponders in its place. And once you do that, you don't really need something like 23 lands anymore. And I didn't think this deck needed that many lands in the first place. So I took out a couple of lands for more Birds of Paradise so that the mana could be consistent. Going into this league, I think if there's going to be one thing that's going to be problematic for this deck, it's going to be the colors. This is a base blue-green deck, but a bunch of the enablers are either white or black here, which means those light splash cards are actually quite important to curving out. And this is why I wanted to have more turn 1 mana dorks to more consistently help my colors work out while also helping me to play around things like Daze a little bit better. I am 100% sure that the mana base for this deck list is suspect, but this is a donation deck list, right? So I made some minimal changes to it, fired it off, and we're gonna play through a league, and we'll figure out what those mistakes are. I'm not gonna take the time to like run it through a hypergeometric calculator and like smooth out the mana base for something that I'm going to play for 5 rounds. Okay. With that said, YouTube folks, please throw me a like on this video if you are enjoying my content. That sort of thing helps out a lot and helps get more eyes on my content. I think today's video is going to be a lot of fun, and so I would like a lot of people to see Hushbringer in action in Legacy. And most importantly here, fuck the Thassa's Oracle combo decks today. We're gonna get them. My opening hand is a little bit awkward. I'm gonna go ahead and keep it. I do have like 2 cantrips to try to find something to pair with this Phyrexian. Nope, we're dead. Not dead. All right, let's try to find a Force of Will then. Stifle for Storm Trigger is probably too much of a dream, and I think I need to look for the disruptive element now rather than trying to make the turn 2 Phyrexian Dreadnought, and, well, is that true? Not actually true. I make it on turn 2, and I kill on turn 4. On turn 3, I have my opponent's life total, so that ad nauseum is no longer really all that great. Is this good enough? Like, I only have 4 pieces of interaction in the entire deck. Maybe this is good enough. Alright. Let's assume this is good enough. This is a matchup where I would really be hoping to win games 2 and 3, not game 1 anyway. Ooh. So, that's interesting. I mean, the opponent has a lot of rituals. Or a lot of blue cards that they can't cast. Alright, YOLO. I've called YOLO, so whatever happens now is not my fault. We made a 12-12 on turn 2. That's cool. Oh, baby. So now I think I play Uro, use Uro to put in Misty Rainforest, and then ponder looking for a Force of Will, and I'll have the other Uro to pitch to it. I don't think Lazav matters here, so I'm just going to fetch another Tropical Island, and let's ponder for Force of Will. Holy shit! Are we doing it? Sure feels like I might be doing it. Oh my god, we stole it. We stole it. Phyrexian Dreadnought looking good. Alright. I want Deafening Silence, Flusterstorm, Veil. This is Ant. I want Surgicals. If this is not Ant, I probably don't. Like, I saw 2 cards. I'm going to lean towards it being Ant, but I don't actually know. I guess I could do ye old Google search on my opponent and see if they're known for playing either Ant or TES. Alright. We do the old MTG Goldfish. Who is my opponent? Rocks. Loading, and we're loading. Snoko, Ninjas, Snoko, Blue Black. What's Blue Black? Alright. I do not have data on which deck my opponent is playing. Alright, what don't I want? Roll of Fate is slow. Get out. I can probably trim on Uro. I can kill my opponent with whatever if I stick a Deafening Silence. Let's treat... Actually, maybe Lazav is the most clunky thing here. Maybe I don't go all the way to 3 surgicals. Maybe I play 2 because I want to counter something and then surgical it. If I'm going down to essentially a 3-color deck, probably cut a bird. Maybe I trim on this? Question mark. I don't know exactly what I'm doing here. Perfect mana base. We wouldn't keep this hand even with better mana, though. This is just, like, this doesn't have a cohesive game plan, and that's okay. This one doesn't have lands. Yep. I'm going to be keeping this. What is going back? That's actually pretty tough. I think it's Surgical Stifle, but I'm not actually sure. Actually, maybe it's Hushbringer Surgical. I could buy that. Alright, now let's mute my phone. You don't need to hear the shuckle noise. Ooh. Badlands is a nudge towards TES instead. Yep, alright. We did get paired against TES. In which case, I'm going to want my Plague Engineers over my Surgicals. Why is my opponent going so slowly here? Like, this seems like easy. Just turn 1, make a bunch of goblins here. I don't know that they have something like an Infernal Tutor in their sideboard that lets them go deeper. If they can, like, they have a little bit of mana to muck around with. Alright, I mean, they drew 27 cards. That should kill me. I'm not showing them anything new here, so I'm just going to F6. If they discard spell me, they discard spell me. What could I have that beats goblins, though? My opponent was going to make... I forget exactly how many goblins, but my opponent was going to make enough goblins that I was dead in 2 turns, right? So Plague Engineer... Well, I guess Mana Dork into Plague Engineer does it. Okay, I guess that's fair. So they did play around something by going for a Pier line, assuming they can kill me. They're putting a Burning Wish under, so I'm going to assume that I am dead. What do you... Alright. So the coast is clear, but you've known that for a while. Okay, there is a main deck tendrils. That's good to know about. Okay, so now that we know it's TES, we're gonna go Surgicals out or Plague Engineers in. It's a little better versus Goblins, and we'll call that fine. Turn 1 Deafening Silence on the play with Force of Will backup. Keep. Okay, I don't know how many outs my opponent is going to have to Deafening Silence, but Force of Will should muck with most of them. My opponent might have some number of Abrupt Decay type cards boarded in, but I don't know if they would have been expecting this from us. So if they didn't board in very many of those, they could have like one access to like one bounce spell or something like that. We'll see what my opponent can actually do. Your Lotus Petal as your only spell resolves. All. I believe that I am fine just casting this, because putting that into play is going to be how I'm going to win this game. I am not going to cast this Ponder this turn, because like I have access to a Flusterstorm end of turn, and then a Force of Will on my opponent's turn, although I'm not going to counter that. They can have that. The goal is not to use counter spells unless there is something that is taking Deafening Silence off the table. There might be some exceptions to that. Like I could think about just countering a Burning Wish, for example, that might get a Void Snare or something. But there aren't very many non-bounce spells that I want to be countering right now. Blue, Underground Sea, green, green. Carpet of Flowers. Does that matter? I don't think that matters. That normally matters, but not really here. I'll let that happen. Alright. So I either have green, 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 or blue, blue currently. This doesn't fetch Bayou. I might just have to grab an island here. I do have to grab an island. Then let's get one that makes black to have access to Plague Engineer later. Oh, I don't have enough cards in the graveyard. I wasn't really thinking about that side of the equation. I guess that means I'm pondering. This. I can't cast Plague Engineer. This. Go off this. Hushbringer is non-creature, right? Hushbringer, Dreadnought. I don't need any of this. It becomes a little awkward here if my opponent has a bounce spell for Deafening Silence this turn, but otherwise I think I'm very clearly in the driver's seat. If 13 damage next turn. Um, that's happening? I think that's happening. I can hopefully use hardcast Flusterstorm next turn to take out whatever my opponent gets here. Yeah, my opponent has just conceded they don't have an out to Deafening Silence based on their current deck configuration. Alright, good stuff. I mean, we made Dreadnought very early 2 games in a row. I'll definitely be keeping this opening hand. The question is, like, are we playing a Dreadnought on 1 and having it sacrifice itself so that I can just bring it back with Lazav? Or am I just playing Takal Honor Guard on 2? I think I'm playing... Like, I'm going to hold up Stifle Mana on turn 1. We'll see what my opponent is on. So my first guess is that this is going to be a green-white Maverick deck. But we'll see. We could be playing against some sort of Bant mid-rangey thing, too. Green-white Maverick. Played around the Stifle. Did not play around the Stifle. Nice. Now we'll take 1 here. I choose you! The Tocatli Honor Guard. Not Tocatl. Tocatli. Atli? Meow? Splash build confirmed. Oh no. Oh wait, I'm a 1-3. This is fine. I like that big butt. I will not be blocking. Is brainstorming better than casting Lazav? Lazav doesn't have any food right now. I think it's fine to brainstorm. I can fetch too. Mana dorks are not good against Jitte. Those are going back. I'm gonna fetch now so that I can leave up Karakas. My opponent's deck definitely has legendary creatures. Just grab a Trop. Let's get our sneaky 1 point of damage. Swords to Plowshares from my opponent would be pretty legit. But it would give me 12 life. The most annoying thing about Swords of Plowshares is actually that it doesn't put a card in the graveyard for Lazav to copy in a bit. You'd like to name human, I suppose? Dreadnought. For the long game. If my opponent did name human, they'd use the 2 Jitte counters that they have to kill this. I don't know that that's a misplay, but like 11-11 versus 12-12 is the... I don't know if that's a defining difference. Whereas me not having this could mean that I don't get another Phyrexian Dreadnought later. Alright, my opponent is thinking about something on 2 mana. What is that something? IDK. Stoneforge activation, Thalia, moving Jitte, playing a 1 mana dork. Well, I'll take the value. My opponent gets 2 Jitte counters in exchange. Good with that. They have another Stoneforge or something, they can kill my Tocatl Honor Guard and then deploy it. That's more annoying than it looks. Neat. Okay. I think 2 lands are going back here. Am I playing Hushbringer? I can play Hushbringer and then Phyrexian Dreadnought. Or I can just play Phyrexian Dreadnought, my opponent uses 3 of their Jitte counters, and then I just stifle my own trigger. I think I like having the other body. The Stifle can also do stuff later. Go for an attack now. Trade with the Plague Engineer. Deal him a bunch of damage. play a new one post-combat. I think I like it. Ooh, that's a good draw. Alright, so I won't be blocking here. Opponent is going for destroying my creatures, which is reasonable. No blocks for me. Thanks. See if my opponent goes for any pumps here, or if they're just gonna, like... Yeah, so they're gonna eat some stuff from graveyard. Yeah, eating that Dreadnought's pretty good. Lazav, any graveyard? Your graveyard. Oh, that's unfortunate. I mean, I guess I can YOLO and try to hit something here. Oh, I've been betrayed. That's okay. I still have a legendary creature that I can bounce via Caracas after blocks if my opponent doesn't see that. Oh, nice. Okay, so they didn't see killing the Lazav on my turn yet. That's a line that may be available. Oh, that's a lot of damage. Alright, please misplay. Yes. Blocks. Blocks. Nice. So now my opponent doesn't accumulate any more Jitte counters this turn. I'm very happy that I got the free block out of that. We'll see if I lose the Lazav here. I think I'm fine with this happening. I'm not gonna like try to fight over one more Jitte counter. Hushbringer's not great. Not gonna lie to you. I'm going to play it out. I don't think I want to make an attack. Maybe there's very little cost of doing so. My opponent has a, like, Hushbringer or something. Yeah, that doesn't really even do anything. Well, yeah, actually that would do a lot. I can stifle my opponent's Jitte. Trigger this turn. Make sure I keep my stuff alive. Not really how I want to be using my cards, but it's how I'm going to be using my cards. Oh, that's very good. Alright, I really need a big draw here. Roll of Fate is not a big draw. Seven, 8, 9, and 11 damage. If my opponent sees the double block line to like let their own stuff die, then eat it, I'll let them have that. I'm in bad shape. Now I need to re-auto yield to those. I guess there are worlds where I could have left these back and gone for chump block based lines instead. But then my opponent just activates Mother of Runes and I lose a chance to press an advantage. Alright, we got real close there. I didn't think we were going to lose that one. The Swords to Plowshares top deck was critical. Alright. Like these 6 cards. Although this means I'm going to be a little bit black heavier than in game 1. I probably don't want to be playing Force of Will. And I think Scroll of Fate kind of slow. I guess I play it on turn 2 a lot of the time. Lazav? Is Lazav worse than Scroll of Fate? My stuff's gonna get exiled by Swords to Plowshares. My opponent has Karakas. Yeah, okay, maybe Scroll of Fate is better than Lazav. Let's try this. Ye old Sixlander. Not gonna cut it. Is 5 cards better than this 6? Let's hope Brainstorm fixes this. I have Brainstorm plus the Cotley Honor Guard next turn. And then hopefully a Dreadnought or an Uro the following turn afterwards. My opponent's gone to 5. There is hope for me. Top deck Plague Engineer? No. No dice. Let's start here. I don't want you. And I probably don't want you. Tundra? Maybe Tundra here. I am hoping to make my opponent stumble after their mulligan by removing this Noble Hierarch. So cards like Knight of the Reliquary are going to be way more valuable, but if my opponent gets stuck on mana, then time walking them by removing one of their mana sources is really good. Also, that was nice. Grab access to black mana. Green. Blue. Some other color. Nice. Alright. I have generated a 6/6. See if it's good enough. Really an 8/8 because of the two Noble Hierarchs. I don't get the initial ETB trigger here, but I will get the trigger on attack. Boo! Yeah! Alright, like, we win some, we lose some there. If my opponent has a big Haymaker play this turn, I'm a little bit in trouble. Otherwise, I'd say things are pretty even. Like, a bunch of my opponent's cards right now are not particularly strong. Whereas, since I have the Tocatl Honor Guard in play, a bunch of my cards are quite good. I'm going to play a redundant one of these. There's a chance that I should hold this in my hand for Brainstorm, but if this ends up being a battle of inches where my opponent is attacking for 2 and I'm attacking for 3, I want to be able to defend. Ooh, this could be a green sun for like a questing beast or something. Oh, that's good. Notably, at this time, I think my opponent played their turn poorly. I think they were supposed to attack with Stoneforge Mystic, see if I block, and if I block, they get to kill this with Plague Engineer too. Can't make this shit up, though. Wrong! Who needs to play cantrips if we can just draw like that? Alright. Alright. What I get for being happy about a nice top deck. My opponent top decked as well. Alright, that was a very bad draw to balance the very poor draw of the previous turn. I kind of think my opponent is supposed to wasteland me. I don't know which land they are supposed to wasteland, but I feel like I should not have 4 lands anymore. The Uro not drawing me the card and gaining me the life on ETB is real weird. Well, that explains why they're not wastelanding me. Two Abrupt Decays to answer that. Is Uro attacking? Uro trades with Plague Engineer right now, and then Takata Honor Guards are free. And I can also play Noble Hierarch. I draw a card. Um, um, I don't think I'm going to do that yet. Because if I fetch this, this becomes exposed to the wasteland, whereas it's not exposed to the wasteland right now. Let's stare at each other for a little while. I can play this in a way that allows me to use like Stifle to protect one of my lands somehow. That'd be cool. I guess that involves getting the Noble Hierarch in play. What is Wasteland targeting? Targeting Misty Rainforest. You have a second Wasteland? Can't really use Stifle here to protect from a second Wasteland. Yeah. Then I would be protecting a land that is tapped. Yeah, I should have fetched Savannah. I'm going to crash in this turn. Leaves me with Underground Sea to get later, so that I still have something that can play Abrupt Decay. Alright, I'm glad I traded off the Uro already, because otherwise that could have gotten Caracas and invalidated Uro. We go on Scroll of Fate, or am I holding up a Stifle for a Night activation? Scroll of Fate doesn't really do anything right now, because I can already do Stifle stuff. Or, sorry, I can... Stifle's effect is already done because of the Honor Guards. With one more land, I can also just, like, bring an Uro back from the graveyard, and that's respectable as well. If I cast Stifle, use Noble Hierarch, man. I cast Stifle, use Noble Hierarch mana. Didn't my opponent mulligan to 5 this game, by the way? Had a very strong set of draws. That is indeed the case. Got a 1 mana blue wasteland. Or I guess strip mine since it blew up the plains. Okay, now I need a fetch land and I can get rid of choke. Attack with a 2/3. That seems fine. Pick 4. Oh, I don't know about Horizon Canopy over Wasteland there. I don't know about that. Like, I think an attack with a knight is more valuable than one random card off the top. Ooh, yeah, I don't like that play. Like, last turn my opponent could have taken out Savannah. This turn they could take out Tropical Island if they went the Wasteland route. Or alternatively, they could have crashed in for like 7 more damage last turn, 6 more damage last turn. And life worth a jump block? And life is a lot. I think the answer there is yes, since I have 3 copies of this effect. Cycle not really good here. There's also a world where Hushbringer's just lying body pokes my opponent to death. I'm getting 2 a turn. I don't think I get to do that with the Stifle. Yeah. There's too much of a chance that that's a bluff. Hit for 10, I take. Well, that's pretty good. That's fortunate too. All right, well, I can make a big this turn. That's worth something. Does my opponent get to attack anymore? Wonder if my opponent gets to attack anymore. Okay, so if they leave one butt knight back, they can fetch with Verdant Catacombs and activate the other knight. I see. Does my Dread not get to attack? I can put one in the graveyard with Verdant, two in the graveyard with Knight. That's an 11/11. I can still technically attack. Oh, so the other thing I can do is block with Dreadnought. A Verdant Catacombs, turn it into an 11/11. They sacrifice the land as a cost. They can still get a 12/12 out of the deal. But not defensively. Not defensively, really. Okay. I think I'm just going to take the life here. I think I'm tapping Trop for this. There are worlds where I want this body held back. And if I find Abrupt Decay, I'm now just Abrupt Decaying the Knight and, like, attacking for lethal with Dreadnought. Yeah, I think this is fine. Brainstorm is a couple of looks, but it's an awkward card this turn. Oh, hell yeah, that's the land. So the Dreadnought has Trample. So I think I just attack with both. Decay the Knight. And have lethal. Maybe I just attack with the Dreadnought. That's more trample damage, and this leaves another blocker back in case something goes wrong. It's a little tense. Okay, do I pass priority? 8, 9, 10. This doesn't kill my Dreadnought, so yes, I'm going to go ahead and pass priority. That doesn't get to happen. Stifle that. And for the coup de grace. Black. Green. Ooh! Ooh! All right, we beat that choke. Sick. Do I want Force of Will now that I know that my opponent has choke? I don't really think so. We played around it well enough. But I may want to try to fetch a little bit better. Well, not better, differently in order to like be cognizant of choke. I think my hand is unexciting, but I'll keep it. That was also a grind fast, so I think I'm going to stop representing Force of Will and just F6 through as many of my opponent's turns as I can. Stifle or Ponder on my turn. Hold up Stifle. Alright, yep. Operation YOLO Dreadnought is being invoked. Not going to brainstorm here. See if my opponent just has the Swords to Plowshares for it. Nope. Oh, they do have it. Or they probably just drew it if they didn't cast it last turn. Or no, they didn't have the mana available. Caracas and one Brainstorm, I guess. Interesting that my opponent isn't wastelanding me. Maybe they're tight on their own mana. Or they have like a choke. Oh yeah, sure. I'm not going to Brainstorm here. There's some reasons to. Probably don't need black this turn. Let's Brainstorm off of this. Alright, doing it again. opponent doesn't have too many answers to this, especially if they're land light. Wastelanding my Underground Sea is incredibly good for them right now, although they don't necessarily know that. They know that I have Abrupt Decay, but they don't know, like, what else I've brainstormed into. Ooh, Ramunap Excavator is quite good. Alright, we're just decaying that and hitting for 13? I think so. I think this is just a case of, like, let's try to end the game right now. This also gives my opponent less incentive to remove my Underground Sea, specifically, because I've gotten rid of the black card that I showed them, and there aren't very many black cards in this deck. If they answer the Dreadnought, I also just have, like, 2 Noble Hierarchs that can get in there. And my opponent playing a Plague Engineer means they're dead to trample damage. Kaya? Is this the Kaya that can exile? Hmm. Hmm. There is owner's control at the beginning of your next. Okay. I think I'm just playing Noble Hierarch and attacking them for 2. Like, Plague Engineer be damned. That shuts off fetch lands. I think my opponent is going to stay alive for a couple of turns. I believe the Kaya minus ability can gain 2 life. So I can put them back up to 3. But we'll see if my opponent can do something else that can stabilize the board and then make me discard the card that I have. We're going to be tight. Alright, they are going for life gain. What else you got? They have 5 cards. That's a good draw. I don't understand why my opponent is so averse to using their wastelands. And multiple times here, where they could have knocked me off of something important. And they didn't. Alright, so I can attack in the 2-3, but my opponent could theoretically wasteland themselves and get a 4-4, and then that's not good. I'm not going to attack this turn. Notably, if my opponent had like just wastelanded me, they had a 3-3, and that accomplishes the same thing, right? Yeah, that was still castable this turn if you wastelanded me last turn. The Plague Engineer attack isn't good. Alright, at least I can start attacking safely in the air. But my opponent's Batterskull probably takes over this game here. I need an Uro, a Dreadnought. I don't think an Abrupt Decay or something like that is going to be good enough right now. I guess I also technically should be tapping the Noble Hierarchs over my lands because of Choke. But with 1 minute on the clock, I'm in I need to click on things mode. I also think that timing my opponent out is probably the primary way that I win at this point. Ooh. Oh, well, that's insane. Let's just hit OK here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they just have that fully leveled next turn. That's bad, huh? I don't think I time my opponent out safely anymore. Kill Kaya, though. We blocking? We're blocking. I think I time out with before my opponent with 3 seconds left here. GG's. I will scoop this one up. My opponent like very clearly has it anyway. I'll just let the timer run out because photo reasons. GG's. Okay, I've kept a somewhat unexciting opening hand. I think I'm gonna leave up Stifle on 1. I leave up Stifle on 1. I have 2 of them. I can use 1 for the Uro and then 1 for um one of their fetch lands. And what's going to be cool about that is it's going to look like I just drew Bird of Paradise as my top deck. Let me make stifle noises. I haven't decided what those are yet, but I'm going to make them. Based on this Yu-Gi-Oh art here, it looks like stifle noises are being crushed to death. I don't know. We'll work on the stifle noise by the end of the league. Batch. Oh, that's even better. That's even better. They're gonna brainstorm, put junk on top, redraw junk. Okay, that like there's a limit here for how many of those I actually want. Tundra? Tundra with this one. I mean, I pay for it. It's just incredibly awkward with these 4 stifles. All I'm saying is this brainstorm is gonna be good. Also, apparently my opponent's cards are really good if they didn't want to fetch with Floppa's Friend. Hey, Boggles. Well, let's put 2 stifles on top of our deck and shuffle them away with Ponder. Am I holding up Stifle? Do I want to play Hushbringer even, actually? Because next turn I can just, like, flashback the RO. Assuming I put something like the Brainstorm in the graveyard. Yeah, maybe we just Brainstorm this turn instead of playing Hushbringer. Try to fetch away more of these stifles. Or, and hear me out there, we just make a 12-12. Fast. Let's go! work. That's fine. They just can't have like another days or something in addition to that. All right. Whose big is going to be better? My opponent's or mine? Mine's better right now, but let's see what theirs can do. That's lifelink. Lifelink and draw a card. And are you hexproof? You are hexproof. I think I put Bird on top when I was supposed to put Noble Hierarch on top too. Well. Okay. But I did put Noble Hierarch on top. Good. Alright. Green. Green. Blue. Blue. Alright. I have an Uro. Grab a Noble Hierarch for future exalted shenanigans here. And call that that. Oh yeah, are you unblockable too? Can't be blocked. There's a couple of these blue, like, slippery duders that all have slightly different text. Alright. On thin ice is bullshit. I don't think I play the bird. That's just good brainstorm fodder for later. My attacks aren't really getting me anywhere, but my opponent's attacks aren't really getting them anywhere either. My opponent is drawing one card a turn with staggering insight. Okay, now my opponent's attacks are getting them somewhere. But prior to that, I wasn't really scared about what was going on. No good. We're gonna hold those for brainstorm. Probably dead in 2 turns, though. Like, I get some chip damage back. Like, I get 2 back a turn. But assuming my opponent can draw some cantrips, I am in trouble. I can still just draw another Dreadnought. Lazav's no longer good. Lazav is also probably getting boarded out in this matchup. Truth be told. Might be a little lazy in terms of sequencing here, because I think I'm dead. My opponent has 7 showing, so any other buffing enchantment probably finishes me off because of the ethereal armor. My opponent needs 4 power to finish me immediately. If I draw a Dreadnought, is that good? I don't die immediately. But I think the damage is done. I can gain back 2, but my opponent has 9 more on the backswing, maybe more. Okay, well, there's the Brainstorm I've been playing to for the last few turns. That was not good. We can ship it up here. I can gain 2 or 3. I can gain 3, go to 5, still be dead. Don't know how many outs I had, but probably not that many. Turn 2 Plague Engineer on the play is probably fine. Corrupt Decay is okay. The rest of that sideboard stuff doesn't look great. My opponent's doing exile-based removal. I think between that and Caracas, Lazav needs to come out. And I think Scroll of Fate is slow. Opponent says, Hushbringer and Uro is an interesting combo, lol. And it's kind of a combo. Sometimes it's a combo. Kind of. Partially. You miss out on some of the card draw, but just having that body in play is very threatening. This hand has no mana. And has a turn 2 Plague Engineer on the play. I'll be keeping it. I'll toss one of the Ponders. Actually, I'm going to toss the Brainstorm. I think it's more likely that I'll be looking for specific cards this game, rather than wanting to shuffle a bunch of stuff back. Oh wow, my opponent has mulligan to 4. I believe Invisible Stalker is a human rogue. Invisible Stalker MTG.
According to Scryfall.
No, I don't need you to read it to me. Yes, I was correct. Human rogue, so we'll name human. I could wait for my opponent to play it. I just ponder this turn. Then if they have a different thing they can suit up, I get that instead. I like that, and then that doesn't play into days. I do not want this stuff. Sure. I will play that into a daze. Like, that's the sort of thing where that is very much not the end of the world if that gets removed. Oh, I'm fetching with the Verdant Catacombs, that's why I can't get Tundra. I want white if birds randomly gets removed, I guess. Savannah? Savannah's fine. So if my opponent doesn't have mana up, I probably just play Phyrexian Dreadnought. They do have mana up. So that's not mana that immediately removes Hushbringer and gives my opponent a 2-for-1. That's cool. Do I want to Ponder? I can just Plague Engineer and Phyrexian Dreadnought this turn. It exposes one of them to Daze, but eh. What am I looking for if I Ponder? Another Dreadnought? Yeah, I don't know that I want to play my stuff into Daze. Let's Ponder. I'll take this stuff. Want one of these? I think I just want one of these. I think I just want the arrow. Guess I can go ahead and make my attack. Alright, do we get a big boy? Oh, we got a big boy. Nice. My opponent is probably really feeling their mulligan to 5, though. Guess my opponent played around Plague Engineer. Either that or they just, like, drew that during the Brainstorm last turn. That's awkward. First strike? Yeah. But now the Plague Engineer doesn't do much. I guess I'll play this. I should technically think about the colors of mana here a little bit for things that I could potentially draw. Like I didn't leave up Abrupt Decay. Oh, I guess I'm not drawing, right? Yeah. No ETB trigger, both positive and negative. Alright. Am I changing anything about sideboarding here? I don't think so. Um, okay. I'm looking at it kind of an awkward hand. I think I'm going to mulligan this one, since I can't just play the Noble Hierarch on turn 1. My opponent has mulligan to 5. Do I keep 6? Let Brainstorm fix this? Or do I go to 5 and try to find a more proactive opener that can take advantage of my opponent's weak opener? Yeah, I think I'm going to mulligan again. This is turn 2 Plague Engineer. That's probably fine. I will be keeping this. I get 5 of these. It's probably these 5. Toss these back. Tropical Island on turn 1 and the Underground Sea on turn 2. It's sitting on some sort of difficult mulligan decision. I don't know how many bodies they have to put threats on. I don't know exactly what their mulligan decisions look like, but they've mulliganed pretty heavily over the course of this match. Alright, so now I don't need to worry about fetching a black source. Okay, so now I think I'm going to be jamming the Plague Engineer into Daze. Because next turn, if they just play 2-drop into 1 mana enchantment on it, it's really awkward that the Plague Engineer doesn't kill it. Daze is also a card that my opponent might throw back, or might have trimmed a little bit on the draw. I cut out the sideboarding time for you, but my opponent spent a little while rearranging their deck somehow, and Daze is one of the most likely prospects for things that got adjusted for being... Oh wait, no, they won, so they're on the play, so maybe more Dazes came in? That backwards. I also stepped away to get some more water. I think I'm jamming. Do I get dazed? Do get dazed. Unfortunate. I don't regret it. My opponent's not operating on very many cards. So I like just jamming. If I get a 2-for-1 after my opponent mulligans down low, that's pretty good for me. Eh. A little land heavy here. Hushbringer is Like, it's something that's okay with Exalted, but I think I prefer just another cantrip. Stifle's actually not bad. I'm not gonna say that it's good necessarily, but it's not bad. I don't have access to natural white yet, so I guess I'll grab a Savannah. And let's just get in there. Now I can stifle my opponent's fetch land, which is going to shuffle their library at some point. And if they don't fetch, I can maybe save it for a Dreadnought. Nice. Sinkhole obviously very good here. Opponent did have more lands, but that's okay. Burrow might be my best top deck at this point. I don't know that I want to play the Misty. And we might grab another fetch land off Stifle. Which would be cool. 2 damage a turn isn't all that great, but my opponent seems to be floundering around at least a little bit. I'm guessing they're sitting on a bunch of enchantments and no body to put it on, and they're not willing to put them on my Noble Hierarchs for some reason. It's a little weird, but whatever. Each their own. Hushbringer, play around Daze. Hushbringer plus Stifle, playing around Spell Pierce. I'm gonna go ahead and play out the land. If this Stifle grabs something, what it grabs will probably be really important. Like if I grab another fetch land at this point, very strong. So if I can play that around common counter spells, it's probably correct to do so. I get a Brainstorm shuffle and get that perfect Brainstorm anyway. My fucking revenge on thin ice. My revenge! Imagine that if that was a Swords to Plowshares, though. Oh, baby. That's an arrow. Do I want the Force of Will? I don't think I want the Force of Will. Just awkward right now. Green, green, blue. I just want something that gets blue. It can be a drop. Notably, if my opponent didn't... Well, I guess they would have had the force still. But the Zero could just be chilling in play instead of being sacrificed. I totally don't mind drawing more copies of Noble Hierarch. The next turn I get to return Uro around most non-force of will counter magic. And still attack for 3, and then I have lethal the following turn. Take our fight pre-combat, I guess. Green, green, blue, blue. Now I'll go ahead and make in my attack for 3. So if my opponent can remove Uro, Takatl Honor Guard will still be lethal exactly next turn. So this is actually a pretty good draw. Even though it looks kind of unexciting on the surface. I think I get this one. I don't know what card... Like, my opponent would need, like, end of turn Swords to Plowshares into on Thin Ice or something. Like, they need to remove both of these. Then they can take 3 on the attack, go to 2. 1 if they had to fetch to get another white source or something. No play there probably means that I've just got it. Although I guess if I just attack with... Well, no, so I'll attack with 2 creatures. And if they remove Uro in combat, I still deal 1 this turn. Okay, so they stay alive. Sure, I guess I'll put that in there. The issue is that it's just coming back. It comes back immediately. Alright, I don't really think I need to play a land. This is brainstorm fodder. So my opponent needs to keep up this pattern of having instant speed interaction, but every time that they do that, and they just take out one of my creatures so they don't present a lethal threat, I draw another card with Uro. I've gotten the GGs from the opponent. Okay. Opening hand here is really awkward. I can just keep this hand on the strength of Uro and Brainstorm, but if I have to Force of Will, things get a little bit awkward. It's very possible that I should mulligan this hand. I'm gonna think about this for a second. I'll go Trop Bird. Turn 2, I play Uro. I get one card out of it. I have a Force of Will for my opponent's best thing. But a lot of my draws are bad. I guess Dreadnought isn't that bad. Going to begrudgingly keep this one. I don't feel like this has a super solid plan, but I feel like this can go enough places that it's probably okay. Like between Uro and Brainstorm over 2 turns, I can look at 4 more cards. That maybe salvages this. If I draw another land on my next turn, I can also just think about playing. Oh no. Nope. Nope. I need to stop the Graveyard Enabler here. We're playing against Dredge. So I think the Brainstorm is more valuable than the Stifle, but then I'll draw a Phyrexian Dreadnought and regret this. Here's to hoping they just have one Enabler. How much Graveyard Hate do I have? I'll find out on my opponent's next turn. Okay, what is better than just jamming Uro? The way that I win this is getting a 12/12 Trampler into play, I think. I Brainstorm this turn instead of playing Uro. Where does that put me? I need to look at these cards. As a fair-ish blue deck, I'm a dog in game 1 to this strategy. The next turn is Uro plus Stifle. That's a real plan. Like Caracas, or put Caracas on top, followed by Uro. I'm going to keep an Uro on top with the intention of fetching it away. But I am not going to fetch it away yet in case my opponent plays a discard spell and takes my Uro. Definitely on the back foot here. But maybe making a 6/6 that draws me a card every turn is going to be good enough. If they have another Graveyard Enabler this turn that allows them to dump Dredgers into the graveyard, I'm under the gun. If they don't, I have a chance, I think. Yeah. that's fine. They're incredibly unlikely to hit here. They're just going to name something like Force of Will. Not surprising. All right. Damage report. How bad? Well, that's probably bad. Probably breakthrough. Could be. Yeah. So now they all crack LED. And that discards their hand. Oh, they're not going to crack LED. They don't have dredgers yet. Alright, so there's a Stinkweed Imp, Nicarid, a Golgari Thug in there right now that are relevant. Want access to white this game. Have a Tundra here, I guess. Hushbringer stop on death triggers. That's something to keep in mind for the future. So I have green, green. As long as I fetch anything that gets blue here. Oh, I guess I don't even need to be thinking about that, right? I'm going to stifle the trigger. I guess I'll pick up black mana. I technically could need it later. Alright, so I'll let my first trigger resolve. Oh. There's a Hushbringer. Hushbringer means that Bridge from Below never works. Ooh. That's really important. That's probably so important that I let Uro just go to the graveyard this turn. Yeah. Yep. Savannah on the off chance that I need green, green because bird dies somehow. Alright. Man, this Hushbringer situation is super interesting. My opponent can't remove it in game one. So my big worry is like a Dread return on a large Golgari Grave Troll. Like, I'm pretty sure I can stall out Icarids with Uro. Hmm. This is neat. Alright, green, green, blue, blue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Done. Alright, so the Hushbringer means that I don't get the card there, which is fine. I'll start getting cards on my next attack. Yeah, I'm going to be attacking for 7 a turn. I have my opponent on a theoretical 2-turn clock with a second Hushbringer as quote-unquote backup. Man, and I thought I was so dead earlier, but Hushbringer stopping these bridges is really key. My opponent can maybe string together something cool with a Faithless Looting this turn. They dredged over one. But, like, a lot of the Dredge decks don't even have Dread Return in game 1 anymore. Also, there's this little fear in the back of my head that, like, Hushbringer is going to be bugged and not work properly on Magic Online, and these Bridge from Belows are still going to trigger. Alright, fear eased. Alright, Hushbringer's not attacking this turn. Ponder could find a Noble Hierarch. Is kind of a good draw. I think this is gonna be worth doing pre-combat. I'm not exactly sure. I'll pick up a Phyrexian Dreadnought. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, now in just about every circumstances, I should have the game locked up because Phyrexian Dreadnought should be able to just trample through whatever my opponent is doing. I guess if my opponent finds a Dread Return, that's problematic. But otherwise, I don't think they can make enough defensive power to stop the Phyrexian Dreadnought. Holy moly. Alright, we're taking a second to snip that one for Twitter. Oh baby. That's satisfying. Stealing game 1 is very good, because I actually don't have that much grave hate. I will definitely play Surgical. I will definitely play Swords to Plowshares. Plague Engineer is a maybe. It stopping Icarids is cool. It converting them into Bridge from Below, less cool. Or sorry, into like zombies from Bridge from Below. So these are my maybe pile of cards that I can think about. I don't think I want Pearl of Fate and Lazav. That gets most of these in there. So what's my theoretical plan? My plan is really have a Hushbringer and a Surgical Extraction, and like Surgical hits Icarid, Hushbringer stops Bridge from Below. That's my 1-2 punch. And if I have one of these 6 cards in play, I can still just play my Dreadnoughts for free. I'm not sure that I'm supposed to Stifle here. I think I like having access to the Flusterstorms. I'm on the draw, which makes them a little bit worse, because the first Graveyard Enabler can happen while I'm tapped out. Maybe that means I'm only supposed to play Flusterstorm on the play. They could just Cabal Therapy me on one, in which case I have a Flusterstorm for later. Alright. How do I feel about that Plague Engineer? Do I want access to one over Stifle? If I Surgical Extraction Bridge from below, then Plague Engineer becomes very good. This is a time where I just don't have the reps necessary with blue decks to know how Plague Engineer plays out versus them in regards to Bridge from below. I will be keeping this hand because of Hushbringer. If my opponent Cabal Therapies Hushbringer, that's awkward. But I'll get to Ponder on turn 1 for, like, a Surgical, a Force of Will, or something of that nature. My opponent has gone to 4 already. Don't take that as a sign that this is going to be easy, necessarily. Because, like, land Faithless Looting, LED Dredger is something that could absolutely have the potential to kill me on turn 2 or 3 naturally, even without any other resources. Alright. That resolves. Did I have Swords to Plowshares on the board? No. This Flusterstorm is going to be awkward. I'm playing Hushbringer 100% of the time next turn. I think I just shuffle this. What a hit. I mean, obviously I would have preferred this before the Putrid Imp came down. But this can stop a bunch of the absolute worst case scenarios. Firestorm. Alright. Not sure if I Force a Will a Cabal Therapy that targets me. I will. I need to protect those Hushbringers. It coming down here is so important right now. Like, my opponent went to 0 cards in order to do that. So now, in all likelihood, I don't need to worry about Bridge from below this game because my opponent is going to continuously Dredge, and I can make a 12-12 next turn with a second Hushbringer. Or do I just make 2 Dreadnoughts? I think I just make 2 Dreadnoughts. That's insane. Absolutely insane. Maybe I screenshotted at the wrong time. The Hushbringer is ETB, entering the battlefield or dying. This is not entering the battlefield, this is entering the graveyard, so those triggers still happen. I probably even beat a big grave troll at this point. I haven't done a creature count or anything, but like, I've got gas. Opponent named Uro there. Okay, you can take the Hushbringer, that's fine. You're dead to 24 trampoline damage. Oh. Who needs graveyard hate to beat Dredge? That was awesome. The medium minus hand, I'm going to keep it. Brainstorm fixes a lot of things. We find a Dreadnought. I can do cool things quickly. Yikes. I'm gonna play out a non-basic. I don't think my opponent is going to be a Wasteland deck, but they are. I'm happy with being Wastelanded. Yeah, that's fine. Hushbringer is going to quietly maybe do some work. I don't know that I want a Hushbringer in this turn cycle. I really want a Hushbringer in this turn cycle if my opponent has something like a Stoneforge Mystic waiting in the hole. I think it's probably better to leave up Brainstorm and Stifle this turn. I'm not 100% sure on that. It gets awkward because if my opponent plays a Stoneforge Mystic, I probably need to stifle that trigger. Whereas, like, if I just played out Hushbringer, that's not the case. But my hand is not good right now. And we miss out on getting a fetch land here. I would like to respond. Oh, none of these cards do anything against Mentor. Oh, no. I have spot removal. Fuck. Okay. So we're gonna brainstorm again and try to find Force of Will. From Tundra. Please? Fuck. Alright. So I think we're playing against white faces of one mind pile. I think I need to work on getting ahead with mana. Oh no, man. Even if I had the Force of Will, it wouldn't have worked. Alright, life is bad. Unseed? I legit don't think I can beat a Jace backing a Mentor. Because one of my outs to Mentor was going to be just like trample through it. And that out is now gone. I don't have any card that can take Jace off the board. I don't have any card that can take Mentor off the board. I am comfortable conceding here before I show my opponent more of my deck. All right. I want these cards that remove Mentor. I'm very sure about that. My opponent's deck will have some Thought Seizes and Hymn to Torox. I want these Plague Engineers for the Monk tokens. These are acceptable. These are acceptable. And Lazava is just so awkward with so much Swords to Plowshares running around the format. Like, my big bigs aren't necessarily going to get exiled. All right, how am I feeling about these 12/12s? I'm pretty confident that Lazav is coming out. I actually might be, and I need answers to Mentor. Like, that's what one of Force of Will's primary jobs would be. But if I just cut my Stifles, I'm going to be dangerously low on things to actually pitch to Force of Will. I think my opponent's deck is just going to be better than mine at the long game. So, but Swords to Plowshares means it's so hard to just steal it in the early game. I don't know how to approach this matchup. I could see cutting Stifle and just trying to play a little bit more patiently with Phyrexian Dreadnought. I could see cutting Force of Will, bringing in some of this stuff. I don't know. I'm bringing in 6 answers to Mentor. Maybe that means I can get rid of these. I really don't know how I feel about the Stifle. My opponent just has a bunch of draw 2s in their deck, which means that stifling them is not necessarily the end of the world. Yeah. Yeah. If 8-ish cards that make having these 2 Dreadnoughts absolutely insane, and I just get to play a turn 2 Uro. Like, get another card draw out of this, maybe make another land drop. My opponent was thinking about casting something there. I think they have Swords to Plowshares. Hey. Undra. That's my land drop. So, I probably play this. Get Swords to Plowshared. Oh, maybe not yet. Alright. I know exactly what I am looking for with this Ponder, so I think I'm good with casting it. Ah. Ah. Okay. So, do I have black cards I care about? Because now I don't need to worry about, like, green, green, blue, blue anymore. Yeah, I have Plague Engineer and Abrupt Decay. Let's grab Underground Sea. I know exactly what I am looking for. I need a way to cheat these things into play, and I found 2 of them. That's wonderful. I want my opponent to, like, play a Baleful Strix or something so they don't have Swords to Plowshares mana up on their turn. That's on my turn. That's kind of my dream. Oh, no. I think do I just play out Double Idiot this turn? I feel like Double Idiot is just safer. Ah, yes, the classic brainstorm in response to Patley Honor Guard. I think my opponent has Swords to Plowshares based on them clicking on their land on turn 1. I am not going to get absolutely destroyed by Swords to Plowshares here. I think if I just, like, cast a Phyrexian Dreadnought and then lose the Takali Honor Guard and a Dreadnought in the same turn cycle, that's pretty rough. And then, like, one other counterspell or removal spell dismantles the rest of my hand. Nice. Now they can just have another removal spell, and then I'm stuck with 2 Dreadnoughts that don't do anything, but see what I can do. Back. Back seems fine. Specifically because I already have something like a Hull Breacher handled via Swords to Plowshares. Alright, this is the big moment. A removal spell here is devastating. Ah! Ah! Oh, man. Oh, man. I didn't even have to stifle that. Again. Again. And yeah. Really? That's rough. I'm willing to just trade hits with this. I'm at 34 life. I don't have very many win conditions left since my Uro... Oh, shit, Eh. What I get for talking. Alright. Alright, since my Uros have been surgically extracted, I don't actually have that many win conditions in my deck still. Not even gonna play this land. I think these things are brainstorm fodder at this point. It's awkward holding those back versus potential Hymn to Torok. But I think it's correct. I need to be able to drink real deep and find relevant cards. Alright. Same plan as before. I think there are only 2 Hymn to Turoks. I believe there's 2 Hymn to Turoks, 2 Thoughtseizes. Pre-combat? I think pre-combat. Off of this land. Ugh. I don't even think I stifle that fetch land if my opponent fetches. I think that stifle needs to be there for like a Jace activation or something of that nature. Go ahead and play this land. After a brainstorm, though, that's a fine stifle because it stops the shuffle. My opponent redraw a couple of weak cards. Force of negation? Getting a force of negation on a stifle? Oh. Alright, so my opponent will ponder shuffle now. So because I think they have force of negation now, I probably want to remove a mentor on their turn. Do I want to remove that Snapcaster? So they're probably bouncing my Honor Guard and drawing a card. That, I think that just resolves. Attack them. I just attack them, make them chump with the Snapcaster. They take it, it shuts off fetch lands. Static ability here is very good. My opponent can play a mentor and vomit a whole bunch of stuff. I don't get to interact. My opponent has any baleful strict sorts of creatures. They can also draw cards this turn. It's a real shame that I can't Swords of Plowshares that here. It's okay, but would be good. Oh, that's very good. That's very good. Alright, do I have my opponent's life total? Or do I play another creature? I think I have their life total. Not playing the Honor Guard means that, like, Baleful Strix and friends can draw cards. Oh, that's a punish. So Monastery Mentor is a human monk, but the tokens that it makes are just monks. That's my Plague Engineer. Okay. Unless my opponent has Force of Will plus blue card, it is correct to play Noble Hierarch here. If they do have Force of Will, and it has to be Force of Will, not Force of Vindication, if they do have Force of Will plus Noble Hierarch, or sorry, plus blue card, it's very bad for me to play the Noble Hierarch here. One of those cards is just totally random off to Fairy. I'm not going to play around Force of Will here. I'm going to make it so that my Plague Engineer doesn't die in the attack. So now, instead of being able to trade and kill my Plague Engineer, which I don't know if they would do anyway, they just have to jump. My Stifle currently has no text because of Teferi's timing restriction. I have a Swords of Plowshares. I have 2 Abrupt Decays. I have 1 Plague Engineer as my big hits on this board. Alright, now that makes my attack this turn bad. Can't cast this. I still think it is 100% correct to just jam pre-combat, though. Because finding an answer to Mentor or to the Monk tokens is so strong right now. Vindicate. I think I'm just going to get bowled over if I don't find an answer to Mentor next turn. Like, things are very much already not in my favor, but don't have a lot of time. I'm not going to risk a block. They can have that. I'll hold this for brainstorm. Do I attack? I think I need to attack. I need to take some degree of risk here. My opponent has one card in hand, so they would have to like cantrip into cantrip if they want to trade off a monk token for it. And if I take the mentor off the board, I might be able to beat a couple of remaining monk tokens. But I don't think I can let the number of monk tokens just accrue unchecked. I also have the out of my opponent forgetting that they're at 1 and fetching. Am I going to get a better stifle target than this? Probably not. My opponent's used a couple of Snapcaster mages already. I don't know that they have more than 2 Snapcasters. Man. Since 1 cantrip means I just trade for a monk token this turn, I'm not willing to make the attack. Pass this on my opponent's upkeep? Probably. Fair. This one is gonna be tight. Like if I find a brainstorm to God, this is so good. Alright. I attack first. Actually, instead of trying to play another noble hierarch. No, let's not worry about the little stuff here. Go big picture. Alright. I am not going to attack with the Noble Hierarch because my opponent has a removal spell. No, if they had a removal spell, they would have used it on Hushbringer in response, right? And then I don't have a Phyrexian Dreadnought. They don't have a removal spell. What do they have? They don't have a removal spell. They don't have counter magic. They could have another disenchant effect that can get Phyrexian Dreadnought, but couldn't have answered Hushbringer. Hushbringer's already lethal in the air next turn. How bad is it if I throw away this Hierarch? It's not really bad. Alright. Supreme Verdict would be a beating. Woo-hoo-hoo! Oh no, that's not the match. We have to do this again? Oh no. I feel about Scroll of Fate. Scroll of Fate just turns all of my extra lands into 2/2s in the mid game. Well, really the late game. Stifle loses a lot of stock against Teferi, but then again, most of the stuff that I would bring in, that's also true. I feel about Lazav over some Stifles. The Stifle's definitely a little worse on the draw. And if last game is any indication, like, these are going to go long, where I don't want to be top decking these. What if on the draw I play, like, 2 Lazav and 2 Force of Will? Or 2 Flusterstorm? Flusterstorm is bad against a fairy. Like, the forces are easier to use early. Yeah, let's try this. What a game, though. I'm gonna keep this hand. I think it's a little bit weak in that it has a few too many lands. But I get to ponder on turn 1 if I want. I think I want. I think I just want to find a turn 2 play. I have a Source of Plowshares, so an early mentor doesn't just roll me over. And Scroll of Fate is probably really powerful at converting these lands into 2/2s. Once we get to the mid game. Oh, now I have a turn 2 play. Great. I now love this hand. I do not want to draw 2 more lands. But if Scroll of Fate resolves, it's totally fine to draw those lands. Because they're 2/2s. Uncounterable 2/2s. If Scroll of Fate doesn't resolve, my life is real awkward. I think I'm going to shuffle this. I don't want to be all in on a card that I know my opponent has at least 7 different answers to. If any one of those lands with the Dreadnought was a fetch land, I would have kept it. But when I already had so many lands in hand, I don't know. It's so risky when I haven't played anything that's Force of Will worthy yet this game to do that. It pains me a bit, but see how it goes. I'm getting himmed. Looks like I'm getting himmed. Alright, just leave me with the Scroll of Fate. Thank you. I'm not anywhere close to Uro mana, especially if I get himmed again. I'm thinking about Misty and getting Underground Sea so that I have access to black this game. I'm going to do that. It puts Uro a little bit further away. There's Bayou. Bayou fine? Do I need blue right now? I theoretically have blue already. Alright. This will make it harder to string together 2 cantrips in a turn. Alright, I have a 2/2 machine. Ace. Mantor. Okay. Now we have Schrodinger's Phyrexian Dreadnought. This could be a 12/12, but it also could not be a 12/12. Opponent takes 0 risks there. I respect it. Alright. If I source the plowshares now, I can be Force of Negation. But if I let them untap, I can be Flusterstormed, my opponent can Brainstorm, get a few more tokens. I think I'm just going to fire this off now. It's exactly Force of Negation that punishes. Whew. And we're not going to be playing lands, because that's a 2/2. That's inconvenient. It's a 2/2 creature? It doesn't even have a type? Interesting. My opponent has said, Scroll of Fate is my #1 afraid of. Yeah, that's fair. Dreadnought now, Dreadnought later. This is a really neat game. Every card is potentially a Dreadnought, and every card is potentially not a Dreadnought. I think I want to do this, because if they have Disenchant as their last card, it's incredibly awkward if I don't put in the Dreadnought now and this gets disenchanted. No blocks? Alright. Got a removal spell as your last card? Nope! Nice. My opponent hard called that I had a 2/2. It'd be a 6 stifle. Alright, there's the first of one mind. Alright, do I trade with Plague Engineer? How many humans do I actually have? Is it a human? Noble Hierarchs are humans. Noble Hierarchs are okay. I think I am willing to trade a Tundra for a Plague Engineer. That's a very weird statement, but I believe that is currently true. I really just want to draw like an Uro. Put it in via Scroll of Fate, flip it face up, do disgusting things. Man, maybe I should have just like decayed a Snapcaster so that couldn't have happened. I really want to have the Abrupt Decay for another Mentor or a Planeswalker. My opponent has had 2 draw 2s, and I haven't had a source of real card advantages this game. I've converted like some lands into creatures with Scroll of Fate. That's not exactly insane. Take this damage. That's fine. I can decay that on my turn. They're returning their Snapcaster Mage. Sure. Alright, I don't think I'm killing the Teferi anymore. What does Snapcaster do? Snapcaster like of one mines again. I can just attack the Teferi. I think I'm okay doing that. Ooh. Okay. My opponent values the Teferi pretty highly. Maybe that means I should too. Didn't really want to use that card, but once my opponent used a card to protect it, that tilts the scales. Alright, I really need something like an Uro here. Alright. That's a surgical extraction. Targeting Phyrexian Dreadnought. Uro is now my big way to easily win this game. I know my opponent has Snapcaster left. They have a Snapcaster of one mind at the ready. Oh no, they're not going for that. They're just going to take a Fatal Push and clear the board. That's fair. This is a grind fest. Do I cast this? I probably cast this just because, like, putting anything into play right now is so good. Can't keep two of these. I'm gonna fetch. My opponent top decks a cantrip and can cantrip a couple of times. Life's bad for me. Oh no. Alright, I have flooded out a little bit too much here. GG's. What a match, though. That was a great way to end this league. We ended with a 3-2 record, but I'm very happy with this 3-2. Like, in my heart, this felt like a 4-1 league, you know? Like, the deck fired on all cylinders and did amazing things this league. Um, so generally speaking, what are my thoughts? I don't think Lazav's actually good. We did not get a Lazav activation the entire league. Part of that was because I was boarding it out a good portion of the time, but another part of that is just because, like, Swords to Plowshares is a huge part of this format, so the creatures weren't actually going to exile most of the time. I'm not sure that making you have to think about black mana is worth the upside of Lazav. Lazav also requires you to sometimes throw away a Phyrexian Dreadnought, and with all these enablers, the Phyrexian Dreadnoughts are way less dead in this deck than other versions of the deck. I would maybe be thinking about getting rid of Lazav for some other card. Now, whether or not the Plague Engineers in the sideboard and like the Abrupt Decays in the sideboard are worth it, I am not sure. Like, those were very good cards. I was very happy to have them. It may be worth having some sort of creature interaction in the main deck when some sort of like Delver or Monastery Mentor or Sprite Dragon, like some big threat sticks. I don't have any ways to answer it currently. And maybe that's something to be thinking about. Like, maybe this deck has enough mana acceleration where you get rid of the black, you can have enough white symbols to do something like a Palace Jailer or something like that. Like, maybe introducing the Monarch subgame is fine. I don't know exactly. But I'd be looking to cut the two Lazavs from the main deck for sure. And adding just the tiniest bit of interaction in the main deck is probably good. This was a lot of fun to play. A lot of times the brews don't feel like they're quite there on power level and they're a little bit inconsistent. But this time I felt like I was doing something powerful and that was legitimately good enough for Legacy. And the last time I was playing Stiflenought, I didn't necessarily feel that way. I felt like I was doing something that was just a worse version of an already existing deck. And this time around, I really felt like I was playing a deck that stands on its own in its own right. I think there's mana base optimizations that still need to be made. I think some slight tinkering needs to be done. But this deck was really cool and really fun. All right, YouTube folks, if you made it this far, please throw me a like and a comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That sort of stuff really helps out with metrics and has contributed to my huge amount of growth in the last 2 or 3 months here. And if you're really enjoying my content, please consider donating and getting one of your spicy brews on the channel. If you want to check this one out, the deck list is always in the description, as is the donation information. Have a great rest of the day.